Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and the second episode in my TBR Takedown series. I had a goal at the beginning of this year to reduce my physical TBR, which was sitting around 250 books. As of today, we're almost at 300 books, so clearly I have not prioritized this in the way that I should. On my channel, I love playing games to help me determine what books I'm going to read. I play a monthly TBR game on my channel, and we are going to reduce my physical TBR through stakes and ladders. If you missed the first episode, I will link that up in the cards so you can watch that. We will be reading 5 books per episode, and at the end, when I reach spot 100 on the board, we will be going book shopping together. If it took me 10 books to reach the end, I earn myself 1 book purchase. If between 11 and 20 books is how long it took me to complete the board, I earn myself 2 book purchases, etc. So depending on how many books I knock off my physical TBR will determine how many books we will be buying together. And I had intended to go to Indigo, but I feel like that is a very popular place. It's very similar to Barnes & Noble if you're in the US. And an indie bookstore recently, like 2 weeks ago, opened up in my area, and I thought maybe it'd be more fun to go shopping in there. Let me know what you think. We'll have a lot of reading to do before we get to go shopping together. But as mentioned, this is episode 2. So we ended our last episode on spot number 33 on our board. We haven't hit any snakes yet. So hopefully we keep that momentum going, because obviously then it will take even longer to reach the end. However, just a quick recap. The numbers on the board correlate to my Goodreads physical TBR shelf, in which I have ordered from smallest book to largest book. So the smaller numbers on the board are the shortest books that I own, and they will increase in page number as we move along the board. If I hit a ladder, that means I can choose a book off of my monthly TBR that I want to read with you guys. And if I hit a snake, I need to pull a book out of my TBR jar, which is very out of date and has the books I was supposed to read in 2023. These books will self-destruct, and my 24 and 2024 books, and I'm incredibly behind. I haven't checked how many books I've read out of them so far, so we will just blindly reach in and pull one out, and I have to read that book if we hit a snake. But I think that is enough explanation. It makes more sense as we move along. Let's find out the first book we're going to be reading in this vlog, but it's actually book number 6 for TBR Takedown. Alright, as I said, we finished episode 1 on space 33. We have 1 dice, so let's roll to see what book we are going to be reading next. 1. Moving right along, aren't we? Let's see what book 34 is on my Goodreads shelf. All right, here we go. We have 299 books on this shelf. I have it sorted by page number and 20 per page. So on page 2, this is number 21. We're going to count down to 34. It looks like we will be continuing on with the Mercy Thompson series. However, I need to read book number 2. Okay, book number 2 is Bloodbound, so that will be the book I'm reading next. All right, we only moved ahead 1 space, so I don't know why I was a bit surprised, but the last book that we read in episode 1 was Mercy Thompson number 1, Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. And we only moved 1 spot, so the next book I'm going to read is the second book in the Mercy Thompson series, which is Bloodbound. And this is perfect for me because I really enjoyed book 1. It left off in a way that had me very excited to continue on with this series, and you guys know I am terrible about continuing on with series, so now I'm being forced to pick up book 2 pretty soon after book 1. Obviously these vlogs aren't coming out back to back, but at least I know that this book is in the wings. This is an older paranormal fantasy series, a very long series, and Mercy Thompson is a mechanic, and her paranormal form, she is a walker. She can, at a snap of a finger, turn into a coyote, and she has gotten wrapped up into a lot of werewolf pack problems and politics, and there was so much going on in this book. So if you want my thoughts on this book, definitely watch episode 1 if you haven't already. And I'm very intrigued about book 2. One thing, I just don't love the covers of this series. They're very eye-catching and old school. However, my husband is a mechanic, and I feel like the very few women in the field would be offended by these covers. Like, you are not working on cars looking like this, and she's not described as looking like this in the books. It's just for the cover's sake. But I mean, here we are. These were written in like 2006, 2007. Let's see. This book was written in 2007, published in 2007, so I won't complain too much. I'm really looking forward to picking this up, and I will see you once I've started it and have some thoughts. It has been so long since I filmed the intro to this reading vlog, but I am now 50% of the way through Bloodbound, the second book in the Mercy Thompson series. We finished off the first episode of TBR Takedown with the first book in this series, and I enjoyed it a surprising amount. Like, it really took me by surprise. I thought maybe that this would be a big unhaul from my TBR, but it took me by surprise. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. This second book is feeling a little bit different. I don't want to spoil anything that happened in the first book, but I remember updating you at the halfway point then that I couldn't believe I was only halfway through the book, that so much had already happened that I didn't know like where we could possibly be going. This one, the plot is moving a little bit slower. It's not slow, I'm not bored, but these books are only like 300 pages, a little less than 300 pages, and in the first one I just feel like so much was happening. I felt like my head was spinning, like in a good way, but also a little bit mind-boggling. And this one, the plot is a little bit more straightforward. We have like a very clear direction, I feel like. Sorry, I'm holding you so weird because my arm is very tired. But I am liking it. We kick off the plot in this one right from the beginning. I feel like maybe the series is going to be like one of those series where they're not standalones. Like, it's definitely following the timeline immediately after the first book, and you would be confused, but each one has like their own mystery or problem or big bad that I think maybe will kind of like mostly get resolved or wrapped up at the end of each of these books. Like, we solved a like dealt with a big problem in the first book. Now we have a different big problem in this book, and the plot is moving at a good speed. I am 144 pages into this, and we definitely have like a clear direction. I hope that makes sense. I like having kind of a clear plot. I still don't know how it's going to wrap up or turn out, but like, we know who the big bad is, we know what they're doing, and now we're trying to like take them down, kind of. Continuing on from the first book, we have Mercy Thompson. She's still very much wrapped into the werewolf pack politics and drama, maybe even more so, and we have expanded upon with the other paranormal creatures, as I mentioned in the first book. So we are also dealing very heavily with the vampires in this one. And the vampires in the series, well, really all the creatures are quite scary and a little bit more like old school. Like the Fae are not nice, like ACOTAR type Fae. The werewolves are like possessive and protective to a dangerous level. And the vampires are super sketchy. And we're dealing with them a lot. Now I'm just rambling. I'm enjoying myself, but I think I'm liking it a bit less than the first book. Depending on how it ends. Right now, I'm feeling like it's like a 3.5. Like liking it, not loving it. But I'm still reading through this very quickly. Hello, good morning. Looking a little rough this morning. I'm wearing my husband's, what are these, like hunting layers, the fleecy top, because I just got the kids off to school at the bus. The bus isn't running on our road, so we had a bit of a ways to go, and it's -17. That's not even factoring in the wind chill. It is so cold today. But at like midnight, I did finish Bloodbound by Patricia Briggs, and I still found this enjoyable. I liked it, not as much as book 1. I'm giving this a 3-star. I really like that it has a little bit of everything. They're short, so they're quick to get through. They have the paranormal creatures of all sorts. There's always mystery, action, romance, and all that's to say is I had a good time. One thing that became blaringly obvious in this book, and I do need to do more research on this myself, so we might disregard everything I'm saying right now after I look into this further. However, Mercy Thompson here is Indigenous. She's from Montana. She is Native American. Our author is a white woman who grew up in Montana. So I don't know how accurate all this representation is. I am also not American, so I do not know. There are a lot of themes of Christianity in here. Mercy Thompson is apparently very religious, goes to church on every Sunday, although we don't see that in here, but it's like mentioned, and it doesn't fit in with the story very well, where we're dealing with so many paranormal creatures. And like, she doesn't wear a cross, but she wears a lamb necklace, and like she digs that out of her shirt and like shows the vampires, and then she was like quoting scripture at one point that it just didn't make sense. And there were also 3 instances that took me really out of the story that were very pro-birthy, if you know what I mean. And it was all in relation to this one specific event from the past. I don't want to spoil anything, but it was just brought up 3 different times in really odd ways. And it felt like it was the author just like shoving her views into this book in different ways. And I have read so many books that have religion or even Christianity in particular in the books, for sure. But the way it's handled in here, it just doesn't fit in with the story that well, in my opinion. And I am unclear again. I am not Indigenous and I am not American, so I need to do more research. Are Native Americans who grew up in Montana, who are now living in the Tri-Cities in Washington, heavily religious with like Christianity? Because it just feels like Jesus this, Jesus that. Here's a quote from a Bible. Oh, but I shift into a coyote because of my Native American heritage, and that makes me feel closer to my ancestors. It just doesn't, in my opinion, I don't want to offend anybody because I don't know fully, but I also wanted to express the thoughts I had while reading this. In my opinion, it felt like it didn't fit. I'm going to leave it there. Let's see what the second book we're reading in this vlog. I just love using Snakes and Ladders to read through these short books, and I'm happy I continued a series. It is time to roll for our second book of this reading vlog and book number 7 for this game. Mom. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 38. 35, 36, 37, 38. We are continuing on with our Patricia Briggs. We are reading the Mercy Thompson series. So the third book in that is Iron Kissed. Well, at least we are making some progress. All right, we're back again. We are still continuing on with Mercy Thompson. I am going to keep my eye out even more for those views and see. It didn't completely ruin the story, but if it's going to be like a sly way for the author to like input their views in a book that it didn't fit in, I might consider DNFing the series because I'm not that invested, but I am enjoying them. So this isn't the one we drew, but as we looked up the reading order in the first TBR Takedown vlog, it's recommended to read the first 5 Mercy Thompson and then move on to Alpha and Omega, and then it's kind of like a back and forth situation. So this is book 3, Iron Kissed, again with the covers, but whatever. Once again, it is just slightly less than 300 pages, so I'll be able to finish this really quickly, and I'm happy to be continuing series. I have finished Iron Kissed without giving you guys a single update. I feel like I just breezed through this. It was 287 pages. This is the third book in the Mercy Thompson series. We have continued on with this series in this series of vlogs I've been doing because they are so short. They're coming up a lot and I'm enjoying them. I gave this one 2.75 if I'm being picky. I like the series. They feel very episodic in the plot, kind of like each one has its own plot line that wraps up, but the interpersonal relationships we see morphing and changing across the books. The plot in this one was less action packed throughout and more had this big climax towards the end, which is fine. I'm happy that the love triangle situation we had kind of going on seems to be at least heading towards some sort of resolution, which I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. I really don't like the offhand religious comments thrown into these books. I don't feel that they fit. They are just thrown in random spots, and it just feels like the author kind of pushing her own beliefs in these books, and it just doesn't work. Also, trigger warnings for sexual assault. There's on-page sexual assault in this book that I felt was extremely unnecessary and just cruel for the sake of cruelty. The plot could have went the exact same way without that, and the repercussions of that event were wrapped up and forgotten about like that. Our victim was over it. The other people involved were fine with it. It was so bizarre. I really did not enjoy that. But overall, I like these books. I'm not loving them. I'm not ready to unhaul the whole series. I really, really like the first book. Books 2 and 3, I just liked. So the series is not something I'm going to keep on my shelf long term, but I'm perfectly happy with reading them in blogs such as these. But I'm more excited to find out what the third book for this reading vlog is going to be, and I'm hoping it's not one of these. So let's go roll the dice and see what we get. All right, we have just completed Iron Kissed, which was book 2 for the second episode, and it was spot 38. So let's roll the dice and see what our third book is going to be. I thought that this process would be a lot faster. We're not going to end until we get to 100. So let's find out what book number 39 is on my Goodreads shelf. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. At least we get something different. So this is a thriller. Let me go find it. I'm back in the kids' room just because they have the best light coming in at the end of the day. The sun sets on their side of the house. I realized once again, I haven't been checking in with you guys. I'm literally the worst. But in doing TBR Takedown, in that I'm reading my shortest books first to knock them out, I'm diving right in and breezing through them. I only have that much left of The Wives by Taryn Fisher, and I've never even told you what this book is about. So this is a domestic thriller, and we are following the middle wife of this man named Sean, and they call her Thursday. And Thursday does not know the identity of the other two wives, the one that came before her and the one that came after her, and they're referred to as Monday and Tuesday, and she is Thursday. Those are the days that he sees them. He travels for work, and they don't live in the same city. So Sean was married to Tuesday first, and they had this whirlwind marriage, romance, and Sean was hoping to change her mind on children. She did not want to have children, and Sean did. When he finally admitted that this was not going to happen, he, who came from a polygamist family, asked Tuesday if he could take a second wife and that he could have children with. That didn't work out for him either, so now he's added a third wife into the mix, but nobody knows the identity of the other women. Sean has had a little bit of a slip, and Thursday discovers the identity of Monday shortly after Sean revealing that Monday is finally pregnant. He's finally going to have the child he's been after for so long. And Thursday starts to stalk Monday online after she finds out her identity, tries to weasel her way into her life, meeting her by chance, and things just get messier and messier. I don't know if I'm loving the direction this is actually going, but I do have to appreciate that this book has sucked me in. I'm on page 278, and I feel like I literally just started reading this book. I'm flying through it. It's keeping me on the edge of my seat. There are so many twists. Well, Colleen Hoover right on the front says you'll have whiplash until the very end, and I for sure do. So much has happened in so few pages, and I never know the twists that are coming and what is happening next and who to believe. And there was a bit in the middle where I was like, this is so cliche. Of course, she's an unreliable narrator, da 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 da. But then you're like, is she? Who's really in the wrong? Who is really crazy? I don't know. I feel like any of the four of them are the crazy one. I can't figure it out. And I only have like 20 pages left. I don't know how I'm gonna rate this, honestly. Like, how engaged I am, 5 stars. The actual plot, it feels a little bit messy, but also like on purpose, like for entertainment value. We'll see how it all closes out, obviously. But in the middle part, I was like, oh, like 3 stars maybe. I'm certainly having fun. So I'm going to go finish this. I've been picking it up. I've been like carrying it around the house with me, cooking supper with it in my hand, reading it literally every chance I get. So I will finish this, and then we'll move on to the next read. I feel like I'm just flying through these, and I'm honestly having the best time. This is a thriller that I'm not like obsessed with, so I think it will still get unhauled at the end. I only really keep thrillers that I absolutely love and I can't wait to like recommend to people and loan out all the time, but it's good. The back says, imagine that your husband has 2 other wives. You've never met the other wives. None of you know each other. And because of this unconventional arrangement, you can see your husband only 1 day a week, but you love him so much you don't care, or at least that's what you've told yourself. This is good. Now that we have finished the wives, it is time to roll again for the 4th book of this reading vlog. 212, book 41. Not gonna lie, I was hoping for a ladder, but that's all right. All right, so I need to read the next House of Night, which is Betrayed. This will be a reread for me. I've been watering my garden, continuing to listen to the audiobook of Betrayed, just trying to get through it. I've been listening to it on my commute the last couple of days, and it's just so bad. I am over 25% of the way through, and I don't understand why I loved the series so much when I was a young teen. And I think it's mostly that it just really has not aged well, but the writing is not that good either, and there's just so many so much offensive content in this book for me to enjoy it at all. I think I'm gonna try my best to finish Betrayed, just because it's really not that long and I don't want to DNF as a part of these vlogs, but there's just too many comments on race, on sexuality that are so flippant, and I don't know. I'm feeling uncomfortable by some of the phrases and content in this book and how flippant it is. And again, I think a lot of it is that the series is old, but I am a straight white woman and I'm being offended by some of the things said, so I can only imagine how others would feel, and it's just not good. It's just not good. I'm gonna see how I'm feeling at 50%. If I'm still feeling this uncomfortable, I might DNF just to save my sanity, but DNFing always feels like quitting a bit. I really struggle with DNFing unless it's atrocious, but we might be there, you know? Sorry if the wind has messed up with the audio. I just wanted to update you while I didn't have the kids around as well. It's bad. It's bad. I have surpassed the 50% mark, and I feel like I'm losing brain cells with every page. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm being so dramatic, but this is just so bad. I don't want to read it anymore. I'm calling this a DNF, which honestly, the purpose of these videos is to reduce my TBR, so I'm going to call that a win. I am immediately posting the series on Facebook Marketplace, see if I can make a few dollars by getting rid of them. And just immediately getting them off my shelves. I have the first 10 books of this series, so this will reduce my TBR by 9 because we read the other one before. But that's what the series is about. Let's reduce these numbers. This is taking me so long because I hate this book with a fiery passion. I can't believe that this series was like one of my very favorites. It was like Harry Potter, this, and the Uglies series were like my favorites as a younger teen, like 14 years old. Now I want to reread those other series and see if I think that they are just as bad. But let's put this on the shelf, take a photo, see what happens. That is going to open up such a good space once those are gone. Okay, let's roll for our 5th book of the vlog. All right, we are ready to do our 5th and final roll for this episode of TBR Takedown. Our book Betrayed was spot number 41, so this is where we are right now. I'm kind of nervous. 1. This is going to take forever. Now I need to figure out what book 42 on My Physical TBR is. Let me count. The Lost Apothecary. Okay, I'm pretty excited about that. The Lost Apothecary is over here. Hey guys, quick car update. I have been reading The Lost Apothecary, the last book for this reading vlog. This is more historical fiction than fantasy, which Bestie Sam let me know, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about that. To me, the cover just looked kind of like it would have some fantasy elements, but I'm actually loving this book. I'm about 100 pages through, like maybe a third of the way through this book, and we have dual timelines. We are in 1791 with Nella and Eliza, and Nella is the owner of this Lost Apothecary, and she does do remedies for everyday thing, especially focusing on women's health, because even nowadays that does not seem to be a focus, especially for male practitioners, and back then all the practitioners were men. So focusing on women's health in more ways than one. If you needed help getting rid of your abusive husband, Nella had something for you there. And Eliza is a 12-year-old girl. We have her POV as well, and she comes to Nella for help in the past timeline. And in the present timeline, we are following an aspiring historian named Caroline. She has a history degree. She wanted to be a history teacher, but that just didn't really seem to happen for her. And she discovered on her 10-year wedding anniversary, in preparation to this trip to London, that her husband has been cheating on her. So she goes on her anniversary trip to London by herself, leaves her cheating ass husband at home in the States, and goes on this grand adventure. And obviously, I'm assuming that these timelines will converge somehow. But I am not there yet. I love all of the POVs we're experiencing. I am super invested in the story. I was even called to do some annotating, which doesn't happen to me often, to feel like to physically annotate a book. If I'm reading a Kindle, I highlight just willy-nilly quotes that I like, but I'm loving this so much. There was one quote. Hold please, let me find it. Sorry, I had to turn my car on. My eyes began to sting as I considered the odds of finding this object in a riverbed, a historical artifact probably once belonging to a person of little significance, someone whose name wasn't recorded in a textbook, but whose life was fascinating all the same. This was precisely what I found so enchanting about history. Centuries might separate me from whomever last held this vial, but we shared in the exact sensation of its cool glass between our fingers. And there's another quote. It said, "This glass object, delicate and yet still intact, somewhat like myself, was proof that I could be brave, adventurous, and do hard things on my own." Love those quotes. Loving this book so far. I will update you when I finally finished it. This angle is not doing me any favors. You can see that my filming space is still not completely finished. We are doing a remodel, so you can see the insulation. So please excuse that. But I did finally finish The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. Historical fiction is really outside of my comfort zone. It's not a genre that I pick up very often, but when I do find myself really immersed in these stories, especially the ones I'm picking up are typically very women focused. And in this book, we're following 3 very different women. There are over 200 years spanning between their lives, and I just really loved following them. I didn't exactly love how it ended, but not that I had an idea of how it should have ended either. I just found myself, like, I reached the end of the book and I was like, oh, it's over. But I really enjoyed my time reading this. It was just over 300 pages. I felt like I read it really quickly, and I'm happy I read it. I'm happy that this beautiful cover gets to stay on my shelf, and we have concluded another episode of TBR Takedown. I feel like this was another successful round. I only have 4 books to share with you, to show you, because I was successfully able to sell my entire House of Night series on Facebook Marketplace. I sold it for $30. Did I then immediately go to the local indie bookstore? Yes, I did. I bought 2 new books, which I should not be doing, but in selling that series, I reduced my physical TBR by 8 because I had 10 of the books. We read 1, DNF'd 1, and I hadn't read the other 2, or hadn't reread them since I was a child. So it did still reduce my physical TBR, which is a win. I have been liking reading the Mercy Thompson series. As I've spoken about through this reading vlog, the series is not a favorite, but I find each installment very enjoyable. I really liked this thriller and a historical fiction. So we had a wide variety of genres, all of them very quick reads, not only because they are obviously the shortest books on my TBR, but I also found them really engaging, and especially these two, I absolutely binged them after I picked them up. So this is another successful installment in this series. You'll have to let me know if you're still enjoying TBR Takedown and if I should do an episode 3. Thank you guys so much for watching today's reading vlog. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up so that I know, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.